Hello, everyone. This is Ernie Humphrey. I'm the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today. Tariffs, Compliance, Cash Control, the Art of Aligning Procurement, AP, and Treasury. Obviously, a very timely topic. So as always, we have an action-packed webinar for you today. Before we dive in, I want to first and foremost thank my webinar partner today, Esker. They not only share my commitment to thought leadership, but they also share my commitment to impacting the professional success of those who leverage their products and services. A few housekeeping items today. If you are interested in receiving a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all the polling questions during the webinar and remain on for the duration of the webinar. If you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please send an email to Ernie@treasurywebinars.com. As always, there's a lot of content, so I know it's often helpful to get a copy of the presentation, and note that the webinar recording will be available on the Esker website soon as well. Also, appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for your valuable time. So a little bit of our agenda today. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to preview some survey results for you. I just completed a survey and it was focused on assessing the impacts of tariffs on how Treasury professionals are managing their way through tariffs, all of the uncertainty that has caused with suppliers and customers and themselves as well. So excited to preview that as well. And really, that's a good way to benchmark, right? What you're doing, what you're not doing, and have some conversations across the organization. And one thing that's really important in this webinar, really what a little bit of the tariff chaos has brought home, is the importance of the alignment between procurement and accounts payable, right? And so I'm procurement and treasury, because I don't think we spent enough time on that in terms of treasury, in terms of optimizing our cash movements and also optimizing our relationships with our suppliers, which are more important than ever. There are dynamics that have never been seen before. So I'll just share a little story. I always like to share this story lately. So my wife works in procurement at a manufacturing company. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, they were trying to import a piece of equipment that they were going to be using, and there was some initial conversations around the tariff. So the part of the piece of equipment was aluminum. It was coming from France to the United States. So originally they were trying to assess what's the tariff, and what ended up happening was originally they were trying to apply 100% of the cost of the machine, even though it was only 10% aluminum. So there it was, staring this manufacturing company in the face, 100% tariff on a piece of equipment. Obviously, they weren't expecting that, and so especially if your margins are kind of thin. And then there was timing issues as well. Are we going to be able to get this on the water in time? Is it going to impact our production, right? And then is that going to impact our customers and our revenue? So just one simple example of having the flexibility to manage in real time, right? Things that are going to impact our company through cash and just the basic operations of our company, our financial performance, our reputation. So it's important that we are dialed in with our folks in procurement and give them the resources that they need, and collaborate with them so we understand the dynamics that it's going to have on our AP side, right, and the AR side as well. So this speaks to the fact that good relationships with our suppliers are more important than ever. We'll touch on that as well. So I want to share some information from Esker as well. They have a great white paper that goes over 10 strategies to mitigate tariff price increases. So just some actionable advice there. In Treasury, sometimes, hopefully, we are involved in the pricing discussions as well. And especially in the Office of the CFO, we should be involved in those discussions. So just some ways to try and mitigate and manage those price increases. And then we're talking right at a high level about the alignment of Treasury, AP, and procurement. And so we're going to talk about the art of collaboration. Then we're going to share some survey results that show the prevalence of silence. So we're going to talk about AP relationships, silos, and opportunities. We'll talk about all the different relationships that our folks in AP are charged with managing and how we can help facilitate collaboration. And then we're going to talk in deep about supplier relationships, obviously very important. We're going to talk about some of the dimensions you might not be thinking about and some of the dynamics. And then we're going to share what AP success looks like in 2025 and beyond. And then we're going to share how that all rolls up to cash management success. And as always, we are going to leave you with some key takeaways for you to take some action, but also to have some conversation. One of our main goals is to have everyone on the webinar take an action from the webinar, whether that's a conversation, asking for the presentation, and really maybe having conversations with customers, suppliers, and looking at reports. So and making you think as well after the webinar is over. So let's talk about the impacts of tariffs. So before we do that, let's go ahead and ask a polling question. I want to launch polling question. Then I'm going to share the survey results. I had a survey with over 260 responses from companies of various sizes in the U.S. who have international operations. So I'll go ahead and launch that for you, just asking you to share how the tariffs and trade policy rhetoric have impacted your company this year already. Is it increased your cost? Has it caused you to have a new approach to managing risk exposures? Increase your need for certain project financing? Have you shifted or considering new suppliers? Are you executing more trades to manage your risk exposure? So this was a key piece of the survey that I really dove into as I'm trying to understand the impacts that the tariffs and trade policy rhetoric have had and are having, and then start to look at how effective have folks been in managing those dynamics, and to give you guys some actionable advice on how to deal with those dynamics at your companies as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give you another few seconds to answer the polling question. Then we'll go ahead and take a quick peek at the results, and then what we'll do is we'll compare those results to what I found on the survey that I previously mentioned. So let's go ahead and share those results for you. So let's go ahead and share that. So we see increased costs. Over half of you have already seen that. New approach to managing risk exposures, really some traction there. 30% making you think. So hopefully that's inspired collaboration as well. And that visibility is really important as well. Visibility into those exposures and managing those dynamics of those exposures as well. You may be seeing some dynamics you might not have anticipated. And then shifted or considering new suppliers, 13%. And of course, where you stand depends on where you sit. So the dynamics of what your responses are really going to be dependent on your global footprint, whether that's suppliers, customers, and also whether you are looking to do business in different countries as well on some level. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to answer the polling question. So let's just keep that in mind. So we saw 51% increased cost, and then the next highest one was 28% managing risk exposure. So let's go ahead and close the poll. Let's take a look at what we saw from the survey results. And again, I wanted to note that the folks that took the survey, we had almost all companies, over 90%, have international AP and or AR exposures as well. So some of these are going to be higher, right, than we may see in our audience responses, given the international footprints of those on the webinar today. So impacted costs, we see 45%. I'm surprised that's not a little bit higher. We saw over 40%, right? Managing exposures and a project need for working capital or financing. There's probably some unforeseen dynamics going on. Some of that may be related to changing your suppliers, and then people doing being more active in hedging their exposures as well. And then the other side of the impact, we have those exposures, but if we look at financial risk exposures, those could be related to interest rate exposures and obviously currency exposures as well. And then outside of that is also, I would put this in as well, your commodity exposures as well, because you really don't know what those costs are going to be, given what those tariffs are going to be. And those are things that we really can't control. Our manufacturing process, yes, we use aluminum, we use certain inputs, so we need to be able to really a lot of times it's about putting a cap on those increases as well. And then we look at suppliers. So it looks like we are starting to see a lot of shifts in suppliers. So we need to be able to optimize the relationships that we have suppliers, and then understand how to build good relationships with our suppliers and work with procurement when we are vetting and bringing on new suppliers. And that supplier relationship starts from the onboarding process. So it's really important that we manage that process and manage those relationships. So let's go ahead and take a quick peek at some of the other survey results. So we look at changes in supply chain strategy. So we've seen getting close to 50% people have already changed their supply chain strategies. And what that means is they weren't really expecting to do that coming into 2025. It's just with all of the volatility and uncertainty in the global markets that they have already had to make changes to their supply chain strategy. Again, it speaks to the importance of supplier relationships, but also the ability to have the information. You need to have visibility into what's going on and why, so you can react and look at scenarios that you might not have thought were possible. So we're seeing a lot of dynamics that are going on. Again, where you stand depends on where you sit, but this may just involve you having conversations, right, at your company. I'm sure your CFO, if you're not the CFO, is asking these questions. What are we seeing? It's a good time to reach out to your colleagues, right, in the same industry, your Treasury peers as well, and see what they're seeing and have conversations and find out what they're seeing and what they're doing on their side as well. So we asked folks, have you seen an unexpected increase in days payable outstanding? Uh, we that pretty meaningful already, right? So this is above and beyond something they would have expected going into 2025. It's already changed, 41%, 33% in the next 3 months, and 18%. So there's only 6% at most, 8% who are not experiencing an increase in DPO. So that obviously is going to impact our supplier relationships. Hopefully, if we are an AP, we are controlling that and managing that based on data-driven decision, and we are communicating that with our suppliers, which is incredibly important. So we don't want to go without paying and not notify them. So if we are going to be making those changes, it's important uh, that we also communicate why that's happening. So again, quite a bit of things. And also just to benchmark, if you're experiencing that increase in DPO, you're not alone, but it's important that we communicate that and those expectations and manage those supplier relationships. And then we already mentioned the supplier cost increase. So only 5% of companies are not expecting to see that supplier cost increase. So it's important that we communicate that right to our FP&A team up the chain at our companies, and that's probably going to impact right some of the other strategic initiatives at our company. We need to get that into our budgets, and we need to possibly react accordingly. And then we need to decide if we're going to have to pass that along to our customers as well, and what that impact might look like again. And then having this information is incredibly powerful to be included in these strategic discussions. So it's not just as if I've given you the information, this is what's going on, this is why, and this is how we can help manage the dynamics of the situations and assess and react to the impacts on our suppliers and also our customers as well. So let's dive in. Let's talk about some strategies to mitigate tariff price increases. Again, this is based on a white paper from my friends at Esker. So just some things to think about if you're not already doing. Very important on the procurement side, whatever the dynamics are of your contract negotiation, especially maybe if your fiscal year, right, is going to end at the end of June. These are incredibly important for you. So we'd like to see if you can accelerate competitive bidding through e-auctions, and then take a look at tariff contingency contract clauses. So think about, rather than accepting the price increase based on potential tariffs, right? Let's take a look at having some specific language, right? Couple things we look at, transparency requirements for proving tariff impacts, right? Create formulas for pass-through costs. So what we want to do is really tighten up the the potential impact and the price increases and understand those price increases and not just necessarily accept someone saying, okay, tariff uncertainty, we're going to increase the price by 20%. And then obviously, first, once one, we don't want the price to go up. And secondly, if these tariff rhetoric changes, which it seems to change every hour, if not every minute, we want to make sure that we are not on the losing end of that. So we accept that price increase, and there's really no reason for it. And as everyone knows, once you accept the price increase, it is hard to ever get that price back, right back to that level. I used to work in marketing. I used to control global pricing for a global manufacturing company, and that was one of the lessons that my VP of marketing told me when we were setting prices. Once we, let's say we give someone a discount, we're not going to get that back. And then what we want to do is going to help with our mitigating is we want to, if we can, diversify our supply sources across trade zone. So what we really want to do is look at a lot of the dynamics, not only the financial health of those, but what about where these countries are located? Can we onboard new suppliers in non-impacted regions? And you need to analyze things like landed costs. And so we need to have contingency plans, right, for switching our suppliers. And so being able to pivot from one supplier to another, being able to manage this change in supply chain strategy. So we saw that a lot of companies are already changing their supply chain strategy. So again, there's a lot more going on with our procurement team. So we want to make sure that we are engaged in that, supporting that, get an even deeper understanding of what's going on with our suppliers, and it really just help quantify that, right? So whether we're Treasury, AP, AR, wherever we might fall in the office of the CFO, right? We want to be involved. We should probably have some sort of committee, right, that's looking at the impacts of tariffs and then looking at it just in terms of our suppliers, first of all, and then also how that might impact our customers as well. But we look at the suppliers, right? Where are we sourcing? Why are we sourcing? How can we look at alternatives? And well, and then of course, and the other thing is to react and not overreact, because what we don't want to do is cause chaos and cause our existing suppliers just this chaos of, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose you as a customer. No, it's not really about that, right? Have these conversations because it's going to get out to your customers possibly that you might be looking, right, at other suppliers and ways to source your products, and they shouldn't be threatened by that. That should be something that they are expecting. That's about having transparencies as well. And then if you're going to be doing that, we need to be looking at our RFP and RFQ structures as well. Again, just some things to think about. Conversations. You might want to look at identifying alternative materials, redesign options, and then it's about the risk mitigation. So you don't want to totally change, right, your products and how you design your products, because you're going to assume that these tariffs are going to stay in place. And so it's not like, oh, we can't use products with aluminum. No, that's not necessarily the case. Okay, so what happens? How high does that price have to go before we start looking at those changes? Because as we all know, I worked in manufacturing. It takes a long time to do those things, and it has long-term implications. And one of the things that we want to look at is near equivalent substitutes, and then as much as possible, that stable pricing. And again, managing this as you can with your contract terms, but it's really important to be ready as well as your contracts expire. So that's something you want to be looking at. When are our contracts expiring? What kind of clauses do we have in there? And then again, looking at with our procurement and AP colleagues and those in manufacturing operations, okay, these contracts are coming up. What's in there? First, we need to see, okay, what's in the contracts, right? What's coming up? What can we do? What can't we do? And again, those of you who may have that fiscal year end coming up, these conversations are incredibly important, and they can have a big impact. So you're not stuck. A lot of companies probably feel like they're stuck, and you may be stuck in those contracts. So one of the things that we want to look to going forward, given that we have dynamics not expected and now probably accepted, is that we need to try and put more flexibility into our contracts and make sure that can be as mutually beneficial as possible. And then we talked about this. What we need to do is have analytics, right, to model these impacts. So what's that going to do? I'm sorry, seems a little bit manufacturing heavy, but that's just where we're going to see the price increases. And look at it this way: this is a way, whatever might be coming. It might just not be tariff impacts, but all these other things are going to impact your companies as people are going to pass on uh, increases to you as well, and your customers might be feeling these impacts. So to understand that is important. So we want to be able to have reporting and technology that allows us to have advanced analytics. And then again, it's more of a manufacturing thing. You want to build strategic inventory positions. And again, that's a risk management game, right? What is your tolerance of risk? How much product do you want to build up? Where do you want to have that product? And then the costs of doing that, right? So if the tariffs go away, how much is it going to cost me to have the product sitting there and to have built that inventory, and then to have my cash, right, tied up in that inventory? And guess what? We have that cash tied up. That means we may have to incur borrowing as well, and that's going to impact our working capital management strategy as well. So all of this really speaks to the importance of procurement in today's world and our relationships with our suppliers. And we still want to look at, right, controlling by when we can pay suppliers, but also how we pay our suppliers as well. And then again, along the same lines, kind of try and get shared risk arrangements as much as possible. So tie it to specific tariff triggers, and then we need to obviously have our eyes on managing compliance. So as we're looking to go into other countries, what we need to do is make sure that we are safely onboarding them, understanding the risk, understanding that these suppliers are vetted, and that should be done in an automated fashion if at all possible. And so we need to do our KYC is incredibly important as well. And I know technology like Esker's helps companies manage that as well. There's more fraud going on in that arena as well. And so it's important that your KYC is done correctly in terms of your suppliers. And then I've been tooting my horn about this for a long time, is real-time supplier communication channels are extremely important. So have a lot of the solutions such as Esker allow folks to communicate internally, but also with our suppliers in nearly real time, and then giving the right people the visibility into those communications is incredibly important as well. So you want to show your suppliers that you value them as a relationship, and you're all just trying to navigate these dynamics together. And then again, this is just a little bit of a more of a manufacturing take, but I think there's some great advice here in these 10 tips from mitigating price increases. But I think it's also some ways to have some conversations that really need to happen in managing market dynamics that are here to stay and coming as well. So again, if you're interested in the entire white paper, a lot more on this front, Esker has some great thought leadership resources on their website. So let's pivot back to, okay, let's get back to collaborating. Collaborating is a skill that needs to be taught. Soft skills are more important than ever, no matter where the technology takes us. And so if you're a manager, this is something that you should be teaching people. Don't excuse me. Don't leave the soft skills to the HR. You should invest in that training as well. So let's do a little polling question here, just to level set where you guys are in terms of your current level of collaboration. Don't worry, I won't tell on you. Please be honest. How would you characterize the level of collaboration among AP Procurement and Treasury at your company? If you're interested in receiving a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, please answer the polling questions. I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of the polling questions. It's only going to take you a second. And again, if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please go ahead. And if you didn't ask for that on the way in when you registered, just go ahead and shoot me an email. Uh, Happy to send you a certificate of attendance. Also, happy to send you a copy of today's presentation, which is what I was trying to say. Just go ahead and send me an email. Happy to do that for you as well. So this is also things that I've looked at in the survey responses. So we'll take a look at the level of collaboration that is currently taking place, and then we'll take a look at some of those root causes. And this is really interesting fodder for conversations. So as we start to talk about the root causes of silos, I think you'll find it interesting. The root causes are pretty much due to the culture. So interesting motivation for conversations that you certainly would like to be having if you're not already having them in the near future after the webinar. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to leave this up for another couple seconds or so. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Horns off. Pacers win. Sorry, I had to get that in there. I'm from Indiana. Go Pacers. Sorry if you're from Oklahoma. Had to get that in there. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the results. So really, what we see is not surprising, is that we see there is a need to invest in improving the collaboration, right? It can be culture, it can be technology, and it's really facilitated by relationship building, and we'll talk about how to do that. So we only see 8% of the folks that say you're ideal, and then in your mind you might be, well, it's minimal, I'm not going to go from minimal to ideal. It's often about, okay, where am I at, how am I going to get better, right? So how do we go from minimal to decent to good, and then start to think in your mind, why is it minimal? What can I do about that? What would the impact be to our company, to our department, if the collaboration was better? Right. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you offline about that. What is going to be the impact to our company? What's going to be the impact uh, to our company's bottom line? In silos cause negative impacts to the bottom line. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time, and let's think about that level of collaboration. Really, only 8% ideal. We'll share some survey results a little bit later. So let's talk about how to collaborate. My Dr. Phil session here. You have a professional brand at work. You need to build that brand at work within your department, beyond your department, AP, Treasury, Procurement, across the office of the CFO. You need to have conversations with your team and make sure they know that professional brand's important and how to build relationships. So just some food for thought. Know what you know, right? Know what you're good at. Be confident in that. Appreciate what you don't know. Right? If you're an AP, appreciate what you don't know about procurement. If you're in Treasury, appreciate what you don't know about AP and procurement. So appreciate what you don't know. You should invest in knowing your colleagues. The best way to make a real connection with your colleagues is to find something that you have in common on a personal level. Maybe you both run. Maybe you both like the Pacers, like everyone should like the Pacers. Maybe you're a Purdue Boilermaker fan. Maybe your kids run track. So that's good to make that connection. Whether you're introvert or extrovert, let people get to know you. So when someone says hello to you, let's not just bow our head and say, hey, how you doing? Let's engage, let's make eye contact. And it's hard, but it's a skill you learn. Let people get to know you. And then you have to communicate what you know. You have to communicate to folks what you need to know. So it may be you work at AP, and you're like, oh, I was just on this webinar today about procurement and all these challenges that are going on. I really didn't think about the depth of that. I'm just curious to know, right, how things are going. Oh, we have these, I think we have these contracts coming up. Is there anything I can do on that front? Is there anyone else that we should talk to? And then my conversation right there would just said, that's how you actively collaborate, right? Just say, oh man, John, there must be a lot of stuff going on in your world, and you share a little bit with me what I can't imagine what's frustrating about that, and then you can start to actively collaborate and identify those avenues of collaboration that's going to build that trust, which will set the foundation for those relationships. Understand the value of your relationship to your colleagues. So understand, right, if I work in procurement, what's my value to AP, what's my value to Treasury, and vice versa. And then it's good to communicate your expectations and let them know what to expect from you. So let's say, oh, the CFO told me, we should talk more AP, procurement, treasury. Okay, so let's all sit down and see what does that mean. No one's trying to step in it, play in anyone's sandbox. We're just trying to understand how we can communicate the impacts to our financial health, to our CFO. So how can we do that? Then you can also let people know how you prefer to communicate. Some people prefer to communicate by emails and copy people all day long, and some people don't like that. So I've had conversations with folks before. John, I don't really like to be copied on a lot of emails. So if you could be mindful of that, I appreciate it. John, if you're going to talk about XYZ, can you please come over to my office and let's have a conversation? John, I don't need to be invited to every meeting that you have that you have. You can let me know why I'm needed at the meeting. I'm happy to get you the information that you need. So manage your time and communicate that. And them may seem like awkward conversations, but you will learn how to have them, and it will save you a lot of time and help you build those relationships. And anytime you can inject some humor in there, that always helps as well. So some more tips: listen, listen, listen. Listening is a skill. I did a webinar early last year about listening. It is a skill. So that's something to think about looking at into resources for you to learn how to listen better, but also to help your team listen as well. Invest in learning professional language of your colleagues. There's different terms and language. If you just look at procurement, AP Treasury, procurement side, I got a little bit involved in this when I worked at manufacturing. There's Incoterms, there's all kind of other terms. So if we invest in that, that's going to show we care about our colleagues. Ask people to tell you their biggest work challenges. People like to complain, it's live. Help them solve that. Communicate bad news proactively. So if you're in procurement and you're seeing these things, you're having conversations with your suppliers, or maybe you're the supplier contact and they're like, oh man, these tariffs are really hitting us. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, communicate. If they communicate that to them if your DPO is going up, and then incentivize them to tell you issues as well. So that builds that relationship, right? You're not a transaction. So let's talk about kind of the lay of the land, right? In terms of collaborating effectively, let's look at the AP perspective first. So this is from the survey I conducted Q4 last year, current state of supplier relationship, just to give us some benchmarking here. Good, we could do better is 52%. So only 29% ideal communicate proactively. Now it's more important than ever that we see that. So just to think, right? Take that look in the mirror to yourself from your company's perspectives. What's the state of your relationships? How do you communicate with your suppliers? What's the tone of those communications? How much time is spent on the phone with our suppliers? Why is it there? What are the root causes? Do people that impact supplier relationships have visibility into those interactions as well? And then again, now it's more important than ever to have that visibility, because we're probably going to be having or wanting to have increased communication with our suppliers. So it's important that we have a strategy with our suppliers so we don't have someone calling our suppliers freaked out. Oh, there's a import in a country. What are we gonna do? This is, to have this like panicked response. Okay, let's see what are the questions that we want to ask, right? What are the questions that are important? What are the answers that we're looking for? Who needs to be on the phone when we're having these supplier relationship? Initial outreach might be, hey, John, just reaching out to see if there's anything that we can do to help you out, or if, what you're expecting to see. And again, it's really important. And then we want those to be proactive, but we want to have a strategy. So we don't want 10 people contacting, right, the suppliers, and then not understanding what's going on, say, oh, John, our DPO is going to go up 30 days. Well, let's not do that unless we're sure that's going to happen, right? And maybe we're basing that on something that may or may not happen. We don't want to cause that panic. And then if we need to increase that DPO, let's talk about why. Is that permanent? Why is it happening, right? So I think that's important as well. So taking a look at some of the current supplier issues, timing of payment is always lower than I thought it would be. Look at these things, more information needed, discount related issues, clarification, requesting the same information. So if I look at all those beyond lower than timing of payment, those are all I see technology and visibility issues. So more information needed to process an invoice. To me, that is a lack of communication, a lack of collaboration. Are we asking for the same information over and over? How do we facilitate that information? If you have solutions such as Esker, sometimes if invoices come in and there's changes made to the invoice which allows it to be processed, then the AI is going to learn that. And so you might not have to go back to the supplier and keep getting that information, but there's ways to make that more automated. And then we look at the root causes, right? Documentation, communication, right? Access to activity, asymmetry of information, silos. So again, we start to see that technology is going to be a key way for us to get at those root causes with our suppliers. And then documents, right? What is the issue with documents? Why is it taking a hard time? Sometimes it can just be the process, the electronification of documents, how we can exchange documents, and then communication from supplier. How are we getting those communications? Is there a way to facilitate that getting into a system where we can all see that? Can we communicate within our supplier portal, our AP automation solution? How can we do that? And so you'll start to see that the issues and the root causes, if we look at right sizing technology, we can certainly start to address those issues with our suppliers and get more predictability into when we are going to be paying, and then take as much control as possible over excuse me, when we're going to pay, the strategy of when that makes sense. Maybe we have discount opportunities even in this current environment, and that can give us a competitive advantage. So maybe we are able to pay our suppliers sooner, get discounts, and then we may become a preferred supplier, and that may be able to help us with our competitors as well. So just food for thought there. And then we look at just some strategy, how companies choose to pay suppliers. What we see is there's not a lot of collaboration going on there. So a lot of times low hanging fruit to add more value from AP is to change the method of payment. Electronic payments are much more expensive. Checks are much more expensive and risky than electronic payments. And so to me, the cat's meow is communicate and collaborate effectively with them and let them choose. At the very least, start with checks. Why are we writing checks? Should get everyone off checks as soon as possible, and then facilitate that conversions or converting to at least ACH, and then we can start to look at card payments as well if people really want to lock in and really know exactly when they're going to be getting a payment in terms of that. And especially we can look at that across international borders as well. So let's talk about silo part of it. I call these inherent barriers, AP teamwork and silos. So we really look at 70% of company survey that was over 250 people, their teams work in silos. So obviously that is not good. That is going to impact supplier relationships. It's going to impact cash management success. It's going to impact efficiency, and it can negatively impact our company's bottom line. And then some of these issues that we have with our suppliers are magnified when there's all these dynamics going on in our supply chain. So what are the reasons for silos? This is where I see there's some low-hanging fruit for just culture and changing that with conversations. Always been that way. Lack of communication, lack of visibility, no one sent them to collaborate. So only 25% is based on technology. So the rest of that I see is related to culture. So might be this, okay, my AP team, do we work in silos? Ask them all separately, ask them all at the same time. Where are these silos exist? Why do we believe they exist? And then we need to work at mitigating those silos within our team. And some of those could be technology. It could just be we get everyone on the same systems, get them access as they need. But visibility, we can't manage what we can't see. A lot of times, those silos are things that we really can't even overcome in automating and making our areas more efficient if there's no communication going on. And then also these silos, issues are created that shouldn't really be issues at all. We start to see the same issues, and then the issues really escalate as well if there are silos that exist. So we need to look if there are silos, and then we need to look at how to mitigate those with a mix of technology, but also culture as well. But the good news is we are seeing some collaboration momentum. I'm sure that's going up, hopefully, especially during 2025 global dynamics. And these are things, just a lot of these are food for thought, right? Is my company spending more time on supplier relationships? If not, why not? Right? What about time spent collaborating with Treasury? So we see that's going in was 41%. So incredibly important. I've spoken at AP conferences and they always say, how do I talk to Treasury? If I'm at Treasury, how do I talk to AP? So hopefully I've given you some advice on how to build those relationships. It's just a matter of asking questions, finding some common ground. It can just be something as simple as, hey, I was on a webinar today where I saw that AP and Treasury really collaborate in terms of how we pay how suppliers are paid. I don't know if we really do that enough. Let's sit and talk about that. I think there's some opportunity there. Can we collaborate more on terms of when payments are going to be going out, why they're going out, uh, and also look at the impacts that they have on those exposures, right? So the payables that we had are going to impact how we manage our risk exposures as well, whatever those might be, especially on the currency side, but us current risk. We don't want to consolidate risk between in one supplier as well and industries as well. So let's delve into supplier relationships, the dimensions and dynamics. And so these are all these are all the steps, these are all the areas, these are all the places where we need to be managing the supplier relationships, potential supplier identification and vetting. Again, that really a lot of times starts in procurement. And so we need to make sure that we're vetting correctly. What are the criteria there? How do we identify those suppliers? Is it an automated process? Contract negotiation and management. That's extremely important, especially in today's world. And there is specific functionality within Esker software suite that really does a great job of managing that. We talked about this. Supplier onboarding is incredibly important. We need to make sure that we are being compliant. We need to make sure that is smooth. And a lot of times we might need to get these suppliers up and going as soon as possible, given the dynamics in our business. We want to be negotiating and staying on top of what's the payment type, what's the timing, what about the disputes, the managements, root causes, what's going on, why, how are we communicating, why are we communicating, what are the goals of communication, are things being resolved, and then all those things together. Supplier relationship management is obviously an ongoing process, and we want to have that transparency, visibility, lack of asymmetries of information, and make sure that our company has a team that is all on the same page in terms of managing those supplier relationships. So a little bit about some of the software, just kind of looking at it, something that's really important, especially now, right? We've talked a lot about this, informing negotiations, right? So we want to feel like we have that foundation, right? When we are negotiating with suppliers, especially when we have so many dynamics going on, we want to know, of course, hopefully you're already having these conversations. Okay, how much are we spending with our suppliers? When are things due? Do we need to change that? How much of our, I would call it risk, are we consolidating there? What would be the impact if we lost that supplier? And then there's efficient contract negotiation. So this is incredibly important, especially if we're trying to onboard suppliers. But also, as I mentioned, one of the things we might want to look at doing is offloading some of the risk, sharing that risk as well. So being able to offer our folks tools where we're going to be able to draft that contract efficiently and make changes to that is going to be incredibly important as well. Again, time is always money, but in today's world of import export, everything dynamics in our global world, that can be a make or break for a company. And the goal is what it really gives you. A lot of the technology is it maximizes the visibility, right? That repository as well. So you can see the status, see what's going on. Is something going on? Incredibly important now, right? Never miss a renewal date. So we can easily go on right now if we had this type of system and look at this. Wouldn't it be nice if we already had this? Oh, tariffs, whenever early in January, let's start to look at our suppliers. We could have automatically gone in there and seen what those are. And then we can also facilitate the termination of contracts as well. And obviously, we can take a look at the dashboard. And again, a big piece of that is looking at do we have any workflow bottlenecks and what things are important. I think it's really important that having this 360 view around the contract as well. And then you can have process control, right? We can look at the management of the contract. So again, who's negotiating, who's changing terms, who can review and approve, and then we have this audit trail, and then uh, we can have that secure visibility and access as well. So incredibly important on the compliance and risk control as well. And then with the right controls in place, uh, if we allow folks some sort of on the supplier side that self-service, it helps in terms of efficiency as well. And I really like the ability to remove the asymmetries of information, so that supplier onboarding is incredibly, that efficiency is really important as well. And then just onboarding those suppliers, again, just to show you some of the things that are extremely helpful in making that efficient and building that good supplier relationship. We want to, if we want, can have this easy registration form. So this makes I like this slide, technology at a glance. This is really how it works. You can see how streamlined it is, email limitation, self-service portal. You can see the workflow, visibility, status, and the supplier records and management of those is incredibly important as well. When I was in Treasury, obviously it was a big concern. We're always considering with banking information. So if we can allow if we have our suppliers managing that information on their end and having the controls on their end, that's going to remove some risk on our end. So bottom line impacts, if you want to look at investing in supplier relationship, less time spent on dispute, fewer disputes, people have more time on value-add activities, which we talked about already quite a bit about how important that is with all dynamics going on. We can improve the control of payment type management, timing, and then we can improve employee engagement. It's challenging, but it's a very exciting time to work in the world of procurement, AP, Treasury as well. And then it improves our business agility, the better relationships that we have, the more honest and transparent interactions that we have with our suppliers is important. So let's talk about some conversations to be had, and let's look at what fuels AP success. And we need to look at efficiency and security, and it's more important than ever, given we're already seeing a lot of shifts in supply chains and suppliers. So that can absolutely introduce new risk exposure. So we need to make sure that we are on top of those risks, as well as a lot of those risks can absolutely be country specific. So when we need visibility of people, we talked about this as well. We talked about procurement. We talked about AP, of course. We also need to look at the approvers. We need to make sure that we are not wasting their time as well. We need to have visibility into those people, give them visibility into the workflows of whatever they're approving. Maybe they're approving onboarding suppliers. Maybe they're approving POs. Maybe they're approving payments. So let's be mindful of all those involved in the process. We want to eliminate manual processes. Obviously, we talked about visibility. We want to improve supplier relationships, and we want AP to be fueling better decision making. I would call data-driven decision making and working with Treasury to optimize the cash flow. Again, I talked ad nauseum about this, almost enhancing visibility. Can't manage what you can't see. We want to identify and remove blind spots. So asymmetry of information between AP staff and procurement and Treasury can damage supplier relationships. Asymmetry of information among your AP staff that just wastes time. Again, visibility allows us to make educated decisions about discounts and explore discount opportunities. In this world, that can be a competitive advantage, absolutely. We talked about this as well, but touch on it again. Improving supplier relationships. Again, give you food for thought, so something to share with your team, have conversations with. Open lines of communication, no asymmetries of information. We want a culture and software technology that allows real-time collaboration. We need to deliver the remittance information our suppliers need, make Cash App easy on their side. We want to facilitate more accurate, right, on our side, more accurate on-time payments. We want to have proactive communication on our payment delays, right? Let's do that, right, and build those relationships. Again, this gives us more control of types and timing of payments, and also helps us understand what the impacts need to be or will be on the customer side and the revenue side as well, because those supplier relationships could be impacting the timing and the quantity and the type of products and services that we offer to our customers, which is going to impact us on the revenue side as well. So just some of the AP, if you want to look at some of the benefits of AP automation, we'll talk about optimizing that cash flow, which is incredibly important and something that really drives the strategic value of accounts payable and that value proposition in having more time not spent on value-add activities by AP professionals and procurement professionals. We have the right side, we've right-sized the technology, we have better efficiency, better supplier relationships. That means increased savings, efficiency, especially savings on the type of payments that we have. So if we're looking at the ROI of AP done right, again, AP done right involves having those good relationships with Treasury and Procurement and across our CFO. We mitigate invoice processing cost. Again, the time side of it. We are making folks more productive. We are taking discount opportunities. We're impacting the productivity of all employees processing invoices. We're mitigating, again, those processing costs. We can potentially get rebates. We're improving working capital management. We're improving productivity of our employees. And we are also improving our retention as well. And we are also empowering strategic agility, which is incredibly important by understanding, especially in today's world, what the timing of those payments is, what it needs to be, and how those costs are going to move relative to what we expected and what we didn't expect it. So let's flip a little bit on the coin. Let's talk about cash management success. So we talked about AP silos, but we also have put on our Treasury hat for a few minutes here. Cash management silos. Oh, yeah, we have those within the Treasury team. Yep, 28%. This was from a survey that I did Q4 last year as well, a different survey on Treasury, within Treasury, the two Treasury professionals. So obviously it's pervasive. AP and Treasury, in conversations I've had in surveys, it's always higher. It's 37% AR and Treasury. So this speaks to the fact that we need to work at collaborating between AP and Treasury, but we also have to have our own houses in order. So we have to look at silos within procurement, within AP, within Treasury, and then also within AR. And then if we look at causes of cash management silos, just as we saw when we looked at it from the AP perspective, a lot of these are due to culture, no incentive to collaborate, no real reason to collaborate. We're not expected to collaborate. Seen that as well when I surveyed AR professionals as well. So across the office of the CFO, these silos exist. They are impacting the bottom line of our company. So we need to figure out how to remove those silos. Again, we want to be investing in the right technology and invest in that culture of collaboration. So just look at the relationship momentum here, which is pretty positive, but wherever you sit, let's look at that, right? We should be looking to have more interaction. So let's look at it from Treasury. It's good to see for some survey results, 54% more interaction, right? A recent survey with AP, AR, supply chain, procurement, that should be going off the charts. And so the good news is we see the CFO and the C-suite. So just more food for thought. So there is momentum in general for more collaboration. So let's take advantage of that momentum. Let's make sure that's happening. Let's communicate the importance of that to our boss, to our culture. And if nothing else, we'll say, look, this is happening in other companies. And then being able to communicate the impacts of that lack of collaboration. And then, as I mentioned, as dynamics happen, changes happen, cracks in your working capital management system, your cash conversion cycle, those become exponentially magnified. So we want to have control of those. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and launch polling question here as I give us some key takeaways here. Again, if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. If you'd like a certificate of attendance, please ask me for that as well. I got too much supply chain on the mind. If you want a copy of the presentation or certificate of attendance, please just send me an email as well. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up just for another 20, 25, 30 seconds or so. I appreciate your consideration in answering the polling questions. It's incredibly important to me and to my webinar partner today, as the only reason I'm able to allow me to share with you the thought leadership results that I do with you in content and impact your career success. It is because I have the strategic partners that I have, and that allows me to share those with you uh, at no cost. So I appreciate everyone. Just go ahead and click the button just to remind you, if you want to have a certificate of attendance, you're going to have to go ahead and click that button for me. So I'm going to leave that polling question up for just another 5 seconds or so, and then we'll wrap things up with some key takeaways. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so let's take things. Key takeaways. Everyone should invest, whether you're AP, Procurement, Treasury, AR, wherever you're at, invest in building relationships across the office of the CFO. Companies should take a deep dive into their entire AP, Procurement, AR, and Treasury processes. Cash management done right takes a continuous commitment, and it requires alignment across all these areas. Companies, you should invest in technology that delivers visibility across your entire P2P process, O2C process, customer relationship. This allows data-driven decision making, and we need to make sure, again, that the right folks have the right level of visibility. Invest in technology that eliminates asymmetries of information across key parties, among your staff, APA or Treasury staff, suppliers, customers. Invest in technology that empowers real-time collaboration if possible. And then the alignment of AP, Procurement, AR, and Treasury empowers control of cash and impacts the strategic growth and revenue and success of your company as well. I want to go ahead and once again thank our webinar partner today, Esker. They have some great thought leadership content on their website. Again, they'll be posting the recording of the webinar shortly. I just love to share this slide. If you like to copy the slides, this is the nirvana of cash conversion cycles. So it's really a good way to understand all the dimensions there and to have conversations. If you haven't had a chance to listen to my Treasury Truth or Dare podcast, I'd love to have you listen to it. If you're interested in being a guest or know a guest, I'd love to have them on the podcast. The podcast is extremely unique. It's about what people are passionate about in Treasury, what drives career success, why Treasury is a vital profession, what makes our guests tick, and why Treasury is fun. It has a truth or dare concept to it. So I get my guests to do dares as well, and I do dares as well. Some of the things I have done, I have juggled scissors, I've sang, I've shared many career mistakes, and I've learned some amazing things about my Treasury colleagues, from international bodybuilders, opera singers, and all kinds of things. So it's fun, and you learn. This is all about improving the brand of the Treasury profession. And finally, thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable time. Make the rest of your day great. Everyone, have the courage to live your Treasury truths and dare to be great in everything that you do.